The launch of Vision 2010 at the Savoy last year helped make 2005 a pivotal year for the sport and the BGRB chairman, Lord David Lipsey.
Well, it's mostly been a year of solid progress. We have put in place a strategic plan for greyhound racing now, Vision 2010, which had a really bang of a launch. Our budgeting is now much more efficient than it was in the past. All we need now to do is to attract in the same old huge crowds as we used to get in the old days. With this change, that they're going to spend even more money on the tracks than those crowds used to.
Now, Vision 2010's first objective was to get more people through the turnstiles. How have the tracks reacted to your ideas?
Very positively. I mean, it's a combination of local marketing and selling the tracks, of improving the facilities so people have the experience they expect when they get there, and of the new national marketing, which is designed to sell greyhound racing as a whole. And I think there's an understanding throughout the sport that we've got to get out there and sell ourselves. It's no good being Britain's best kept secret sport.
But we've got to sell ourselves as a whole. The sport's got to pull together as a whole here.
Well, that's right. I mean, tracks, of course, market themselves individually, and many of them are small businesses with their own quirks and priorities. But if the image of greyhound racing remains as it has been for so long, namely that it's old men in cloth caps standing in the pouring rain, we ain't going to attract a new young audience. We're starting to crack that instantly. We see more and more younger people at our tracks, and particular pleasure to me, loads of parties of girls having a great time, and that's what we've got to build on if we're going to build the sport's future for it.
Lord Lipsey's influence in the corridors of power at Westminster comes at a crucial time for the sport. The demands of the Animal Welfare Bill are not to be underestimated.
What we must do is show that official greyhound racing is organised in such a way that we are regulating ourselves, getting the standards right, getting welfare standards up. Otherwise we'll have some outside government body coming in and imposing welfare upon us. And that will both be very expensive and, in my view, is likely to prove extremely ineffective.
And do you think this will help quieten the protesters who are already basically campaigning against the sport because of the perceived cruelty?
Well, I think the protesters come into two categories. There are some who are extreme welfarists, and we'll never convince them, short of banning greyhound racing, though incidentally I would say to them that would mean that the existing greyhounds racing, perhaps 20 or 30,000 of them, would suddenly not have a career left to them, and many of those would undoubtedly be killed by trainers who would be bankrupt and would therefore be looking for shortcuts. So I don't think that they're actually advancing animal welfare. But the great majority of welfarists are very reasonable people. They may want to go further in some areas than us, but we have established a thing called the Greyhound Forum, which includes all the representatives of the respectable greyhound welfare lobbies. It's chaired by Clarissa Baldwin of Dogs Trust. We have an excellent dialogue with them. We're learning from them, and I think they're getting the message that we are serious about changing the culture of our industry so we do welfare better, even better, in future.
So the idea is obviously for every racing greyhound that can be homed after it's retired is homed. How do you think the sport is achieving that?
Well, the main development this year on that is that the NGRC, which does the regulating, has started to enforce its Rule 18, which is that owners are primarily responsible for finding homes or a future for their greyhounds, and they have to register them when they retire. And some very large fines have been handed out, £1,000 fines to owners who've been neglecting their duties in that regard, and I'm very glad they have.
And presumably this is the sort of behaviour that the Animal Welfare Bill people are monitoring.
Well, it is the sort of behaviour that will be noted in Parliament as it debates the bill, and by the ministry responsible when they decide what regulations to impose and decide can greyhound racing sort itself out, or have we got to try and sort it out for them.
Whether at official functions with other members of greyhound racing's hierarchy or on the terraces ready to cheer his own greyhound on, David Lipsey is greyhound racing through and through, and we'll be hearing more of the BGRB chairman's views in future editions of the Dogs.